Put on your big Hollywood sunglasses and light the torch, because it's cellar time. Welcome to the Crack Cellar, as the prophecy was once foretold. I'm Two-Spirit Penguin Daniel.
And I'm Broadcaster Nickels.
And today we're going to talk about tragedy and loss in ways that have never been expressed before in the podcast medium. This burgeoning small enterprise that a few people participate in at the moment. Broadcaster Nickels, can you tell me what the fuck happened to the Doom Eternal soundtrack?
It's there. It's just phoned in.
So we're going to review Doom Eternal in this episode, but before that, we want to talk a little bit about this soundtrack because the soundtrack sounds absolutely nothing like the actual music in the game.
And I'm not going to say it sounds bad or terrible. It's just not nearly as good as 2016.
No. It sounds flat. That's the best way I can put it.
Whereas it was just mixed by someone completely different. I bet you it was shoved upon them in a last. I bet you some bad blood happened. It's been more of a recent discovery, and then they just fucking opened up a door to some cubicle, and they're like, "You're mixing this like in 3 days."
Yeah. So do you think this is like a vengeful thing, like sort of the way the guy who does the Halo music was treated by Bungie in the end? Do you think it's somewhat similar to that? Because this doesn't really make sense, because he did a mix and they remixed it for no reason and released it in a half-assed state, seemingly for no reason. Do you think this is Ide not liking him and wanting to push him out? Do you think it's Bethesda's decision to do this? Where do you think the dominoes fall here?
I mean, it's hard to say really, because I have no idea who owns the actual intellectual property to the music. I don't know if he created the soundtrack and then with some contract allows them to lease it for all Doom titles for a certain amount of years or whatever. That's why they just used the same soundtrack this go around and probably didn't involve him on any level, which is why it ended up ultimately being mixed shitty, because he probably wasn't around to, help with its implementation into the actual gameplay with all the sound effects going on and, when it needs to be lowered and when it needs to be intensified, or, the volume needs to go up, bass needs to increase, stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's not cool because now we're losing this guy. He's pissed about this and he's quitting. He's no longer doing music for Doom.
If I'm really being honest, it's what it attracted me to 2016. I remember just being like, oh God, another Doom, It's been pretty bad. And I heard the soundtrack. I was like, damn, this is fucking killer soundtrack. And I saw gameplay. I was like, damn.
Yeah, it's an incredible soundtrack, and the music this guy produces, it's way above the quality of typical Western video game music nowadays. I mean, there's probably a time when Western video game music was better. I feel like it's always kind of been shit, but it used to be better shit, maybe. But in a world of shit, this guy shines like a diamond in the sky.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny because if you look at the comments, if you ever look at this guy's social media or anything like that, a lot of people think he's created a new genre of music. Some people think he's like the next coming of Christ for American metal, except I wouldn't say American metal because I misspoke there. I would say Western.
That'd be a cool
metal,
pivot,
because he's Australian, obviously, but he does like the the tone of the music was very, American style metal. It's not like a European style metal, but
Oh, definitely. It reminded me of Static X a little bit.
Yeah, a way heavier Static X.
Right. If Static X was eaten by a demon and the demon shit out music. Yeah.
Rest in power. Like that.
But yeah, so if there's another Doom game, it's not going to have him. And to me, the blueprint is in the music with these reboots. So I don't want to talk too much about my rating for Doom Eternal, but I'm just going to say a big part of my rating is the music. So it immediately downgrades future prospects for the next Doom game for me.
Yeah. It's a shame through and through.
Yeah. Well, I'm just curious where it came from, if it's vengeance, if it's incompetence, because it just doesn't seem right. Because it's like
probably a little bit of column A, column B, column C, column D.
I don't know. It's like you have this guy. They let him do 2 mixes on the soundtrack, the OST, but then they just let some intern do the rest for no apparent reason. It defies logic. You already paid this man to make the soundtrack. You're going to let some idiot fuck it up, like 80% of it fuck it up? I don't understand it.
I mean, if you really want to cut into it, I don't know why anyone would go stepping on each other's toes, because they know how each other are significant in their lives. Like Doom made Mick Gordon made Doom, kind of, in a way. They put each other back on the map. And you wouldn't go ruining that type of thing. So usually, I mean, if I was psychologically breaks down, I would think it was ego that probably played a role in this debacle. And I'd probably lean on it being Mick Gordon, to be honest. Maybe the wrong person heard him saying some off comment about being the shit, or thinking he is more important than the fucking he really wanted him to be. And he's like, oh yeah. And then, I don't know, some pissing contest probably ensued. And then Mick's just like, fine, fuck you, I'm out. You're nothing without me. Type of thing.
Yeah, and it's funny because we've been talking a lot about video game soundtracks lately, mainly how bad they are in general. And we're talking about why that is. And I remember your theory was like, well, I think it's just an ego thing where like these music guys get these big heads because everyone loves their fucking music. They start talking shit to the game developers, and the game developers like, fuck you, dude. I put in all this work. You're just here throwing some goddamn tracks down. I can replace you. I think you're right. And I think it just happened again right before our eyes.
For sure. And I mean, even back in the day, if you watch some like the vid docs for, it's been so long, but it was like vid docs for Halo 2 or Halo 3, where you'd see, was it Marty Lado or Michael Lado? I forget his name, but, or no, it wasn't Lado. Lado's somebody else. But one of the guys, I think it was the main guy that was in charge of story. I forget his name. He was really uncomfortable on camera. You know him if you watch the vid docs. He had black hair. But anyways, he made an off comment about Marty. They lined him up. They play him a couple seconds of each monologue they were doing, and the story guy would be like, fuck the music guys. They come in and they just say, I got so much to do, all this work, and I got to do it right now. It's so stressful, blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, they don't fucking think we're trying to make a game. And then it just keeps cutting back to Marty pretty much complimenting the game developers, where it's just like, I think everyone just works really hard. And sometimes, you say some things and it's in jest, and maybe you mean it at some levels or whatever. And they keep like pairing up. And I thought it was a really kind of good, a good example to insight into these situations, where clearly there is a duality like that, where like who's more important, the ego there. especially in AAA titles, because this all obviously doesn't apply to a lot of games. Who gives a fuck about? And I'm not trying to slide anybody here, music wise, but like take Resident Evil for instance. You know, it's like no one's arguing about the music composer for Resident Evil being better than the people that actually created the gameplay and the story and all that. You know, that's just not in the conversation. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think. You know, when it comes to bigger legendary titles like Halo and Doom Eternal, there's definitely room for that to grow, easily grow, I should say. And I guess we shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. I'm surprised that the Eastern devs don't have this problem, because like Nobuo Uematsu is still like supervising soundtracks for Square like 30 years later. And it's common over there. Like these soundtrack guys, fucking Yasunori Mitsuda, my absolute favorite video game composer of all time, he still works for all the same companies. He still does all these soundtracks just like Nobuo. And it's like, there doesn't seem to be the same ego stroking / ego destroying behavior over there, even though the East has very strict honor codes and they have a very interesting duality with them.
That's exactly it. I mean, the Western doesn't have anything like that. It's not even important to us on a cultural level, to be honest. Like we're very selfish about our creations, if you think about it. In comparison, I should say, to Eastern culture, where they have like these lineages of, you know, and they're very as you put it, very honor driven about it. So, you know, when it comes to Nobuo Uematsu and any other Japanese composer or Asian composer for that matter, they're kind of just outliers, and kind of in a really good way, because they want to preserve their style and pass it on and develop it and evolve it. Whereas, you know, unfortunately, you have the Western culture where we're just like, we made something really cool and I'm going to be the proprietary owner of it, and you're going to pet my ego for the rest of my life and maybe build a statue after I'm dead. Bejeweled. I'm obviously being a little sarcastic here.
Yeah. And in the spirit of sarcasm, man, I've really been enjoying Warzone lately. How about you, Broadcaster Nickels?
You know, it was really bad for a while. It was really bad. I don't even tweet that often. And I tweeted to Activision. I was like, "Oh shit, cut the shit and get some fucking new anti-cheat." I'm getting pissed. It's such a bad feeling when you're playing a game you really like, and it's just like, that guy's an aimbotter. There's no doubt about it. You can't get lasered out of the sky up that high. It's no way. You just. And then you watch some of these YouTube videos where they're spectating them. It's just fucking disgusting, dude.
It is. It's really sad. And the strategy that they're using is, we're just going to ban accounts. Now, Broadcaster Nickels, I know you're a man of at least average intelligence. So you know, as well as the next pleb down the street, that banning an account in a free-to-play game means goddamn nothing.
Yeah. It's kind of a hard coin to flip, though, because it's rather, I mean, I understand if it was my game and I'm pulling in, you know, millions of people playing my game, and someone's just like, "Hey, we got this idea that's going to cut out 15% of the player population. We calculate it to this number." That's the number you're looking at. Nothing else matters. You're just like, I don't want to lose that.
And that's exactly why they are not banning IPs, because if they banned IPs, those people would actually be banned, and they don't want that. They pretend like they want to control cheating, but here's the plain truth of the matter. They are using stock Battle.net anti-cheat software, and Battle.net's stock anti-cheat software is renowned for how bad it is. It is one of the worst anti-cheats ever. It's so easily circumvented that it might as well not even exist.
Yeah. Well, here's this is my understanding of the whole situation. This goes beyond Modern Warfare. Destiny 2 is getting really bad waves of cheating right now too, with Trials of Osiris returning, which is like their competitive PvP modes. But it's interesting because when you look into it, you find out that there is a large community of people that foster the hacks, and there's actually interviews on YouTube of people getting interviewed and stuff like that are active hackers and why they do it and stuff like that. So and it ranges from pettiness to just young kids having fun to people seeing how much they can get away with, or just whatever the excuse is. There is a community out there that fosters it, and that is the root of the problem. You actually have a community of people that will probably likely be growing. I don't know about that, but I get the feeling because it just seems like cheating is all of a sudden becoming more prevalent. That's what it feels like to me. It's just like cheats has always been around, but now after Black Ops 4 and Blackout and stuff like that, it's like, where did all these cheaters come from?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
But just to finish the thought is that I think we need to have an actual community of developers out there that are going to make an open source anti-cheat that any game developer can use. That's going to constantly be upgraded and developed and added onto, because I don't think there's any other way, because it puts a lot of companies in weird predicaments, because it's a lot of money to run anti-cheat. And if your game's not, pulling in the big bucks, there's not a lot of people that are going to pull the trigger on getting anti-cheat out there, which then fosters the growth of the cheating community. So I think you need to cut off their water source, let them die.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. Cheating in video games is very interesting. So in the very early days of video games, nobody cheated, period. There were no online games at the time. There was only arcade games and really rudimentary home-based consoles, and no one cheated back then. And then we start to get into like the NES, SNES, the 90s era of video games. That's when cheat codes started to become popular. You had Game Genie, you had Game Shark, and you just had button-based input cheat codes as well that were really popular. But this type of cheating was harmless. This type of cheating was for fun. Yeah. It's like when you play Grand Theft Auto. Grand Theft Auto is a great example of old school single player style cheats. You go in there, you press a bunch of buttons, you put in these codes, you have infinite money, infinite helicopters, infinite guns, and then you piss off the police and see how long you can survive in Vice City. Okay? That's harmless cheating that affects no one, and it's just done for shits and giggles. That type of cheating is going away. People aren't cheating in single-player games anymore. They're moving to multiplayer. And I believe this is a part of our culture today. We have this new sort of undercurrent in Western politics where cheating is encouraged. You see all the time in the news, this is why your wife should always have a hall pass, and you should just let her cheat on you, and you should like it, and you should encourage it. You see shit like that. Yeah. You see shit like that all the time in the media nowadays. And that's just one example. There's also, it's okay if this person who does petty theft steals from this small business because the world's unfair and societal injustices and the cards were stacked against them and blah, 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 blah. We just have this culture of accepting petty theft and petty crimes and blaming the institutions of power on it. So it's not the criminal's fault. It's the owner of the business that has too much money, that he's not spreading around enough. I believe this is what's happening in multiplayer video games. All of a sudden, it's coming from under the surface. There have always been multiplayer cheaters. They've been around since the late 90s when online gaming first really started in earnest. They've been around, but they've been underground. They weren't accepted, people hated them, and they were rare.
I have no doubt there may be people that cheat that are kind of in that line that you suggest, but I think the psychological, like the mentality they have using cheats probably does come from what you're talking about. But it's almost kind of just like a Pandora's box situation where, you go back to the Game Genie, and even before that, with Doom, where you could just straight put Doom on floppy disk. You just put straight commands in, and you got unlimited health or one-shot kills, whatever it was, God mode, all weapons. That was the proverbial opening of the box, because it showed people that in a way it was not just condoned, but it was possible. It piqued people's curiosity. Then they grew up. Some of them became computer engineers and other shit like that, very capable people of coding, software engineers, I should say. And it's just easy for them. And then, you can't take that back. It's the Pandora's box effects. It's always going to be there now. It might not be an insidious nature that it's like, well, I need to hack this game. It's just like, I wonder if they're doing this. Let me see if I can do this. Boom. Oh, I just did it. Flex, and it's people see that, and then they hit up their Instagram. It's like, how did you, I'm just being funny here, but it's like, how did you do that? And he's like, I'll pay $25.99, and it just goes from there. And that, I'm kind of joking, but legitimately, that's how cheap they are. I watched a YouTube video where it was an interview with the Destiny 2 hacker, and the cheapest cheat to see people through, I think it was through walls, that was it, was $25. And if you wanted to instantly teleport, or I forget the other things you get, but just all kinds of crazy shit, infinite supers and stuff like that, was $120 a month. And I thought that to be a huge price gate, but people do it. So that's what I'm talking about when I say there is like definitely some people out there that are slighted by these games, or there's some vested interest. There can't be, when you look at the number of hacks nowadays, you can't be like, these are not all fucking, I made this new hack and I got tested out. We're past those days. Those aren't the type of hackers we run into anymore. Now it's these mass produced. We purchased these hacks, and they come in like these, what it feels like, these mass waves.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the price point, because I didn't even think about that aspect of this. So you have a price point, and you have a lucrative black market business that's actually not black market, because it's not technically illegal, of selling these hacks and cheats. Now, here's the thing.
And I don't think it should be.
So Blizzard runs a video game called World of Warcraft. I know you're familiar with this game. This game has had a problem since the very beginning of gold farmers selling gold. Now, these farmers are almost completely Chinese slave labor. They have these sweatshops in China where they have these slaves sit at computers and they just farm gold monotonously in World of Warcraft. And then they give it to their boss, and their boss sells it to Americans for a very low price. Now, this is a practice that has happened since the beginning of World of Warcraft, and it still happens to this very day. Early on, there was a very big emphasis from Blizzard. Oh, we're banning these gold. We caught all these gold farmers. We're banning them. A month later, we caught some more gold farmers. We're banning them. They made a very public face on this to say, hey, we're with you guys. We're trying to stop the menace of Chinese gold farmers. Cue to about 4 years later, around when the Cataclysm expansion came out, there was an expose that discovered that Blizzard was working with the Chinese gold farmers with impunity and taking a cut of their profits as a reward for not banning them and not squashing them. Like we all knew they could from the very beginning. These Chinese gold farmers, they have names like YXZB, LGXZBB154. That's their name. You could make a rudimentary filter that says, hey, anyone with a fucked up name like this is banned instantly, but they don't do it. And the reason is simple. We discovered 4 to 5 years after release, Blizzard was in on it. Do you think that Activision, aka the company that owns Blizzard, might be doing the same thing with Warzone and cheats and hacks?
I feel like not, just because Call of Duties are all 1-year games and there's no economy investment. Gold, like with Warcraft, is huge. That's a lifelong game to some people. So I don't think it translates, no, per se. But you do pique my curiosity with the idea of it. Like, you know, I've never heard that, for one, but it's not surprising to me that A, Blizzard did it, and B, Blizzard is owned by the Chinese government at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting premise. I don't know. I have no idea if that's true, if it translates or not, but I just find it interesting that these companies all are intertwined. Activision owns 7 different development studios. That's probably an understatement. They probably own fucking 30. Who knows how many they own. But these umbrella super video game publisher companies that have come out of the ashes and have just become the puppet masters of the Western video game industry. What incentive do they have to stop cheaters if normal players accept them? I love Warzone. You love Warzone. We have been playing Warzone for months, despite the fact that we have video evidence of massive cheating, and we still play it every day. Is that our fault? I don't know. It's a great game, and I want to play it, and you want to play it. But are we actually the ones perpetuating the hacks by not quitting because of them? Does Blizzard, or in this case, Activision Infinity Ward, say, hey, 90% of our players are just going to accept the hackers and just move on with their lives. So why don't we just take 25% off the top? Call it a day. Makes all the business sense in the world.
I just don't think it's proliferated to that point to where there would be a buck to be made that is worth it for a legitimate company developing games, right? To the point where they would risk it. WoW, like you brought up, I'll emphasize again, is a very, very unique example where it's one of the most popular games in the world. It has an in-game economy that has a very easily circumvented loophole where you can exchange in-game currency for real-life money. That's just how it is. There's a few games like it. They're not even close to as popular. It's like not even a conversation. So I just don't think WoW is. I might be putting WoW on the pedestal a little bit, but that's just how it is. Like WoW is a Goliath, a juggernaut in that aspect, where I don't think you could really compare the profit you can make from WoW's economy with any other game.
Well, MMORPGs are definitely a different beast.
Even MMOs though, what MMO could you say people are making as much, even close to as much money in that market, you know, selling off in-game currency? Is there an MMO that comes close?
Not really, no. And speaking of gaps, there's a gap between 3.5 and 4. And it's very big, apparently, when it comes to Resident Evil. Broadcaster Nickels, did you have any fucking idea what Resident Evil 3.5 was before today?
What are you talking about, 3.5? What are we talking about right now?
So, Resident Evil 8 is apparently based off of Resident Evil 3.5. And before today, I had no idea what the fuck Resident Evil 3.5 was. But at the behest of one broadcaster Nickels, I looked up said rumors. And the rumor was quite striking. Apparently, Resident Evil 4 is a totally different game from what Resident Evil 4 originally was going to be. The original version of Resident Evil 4 was shown to the press before any gamers actually saw it. And I guess based on the reaction from the press, they totally scrapped it and remade Resident Evil 4 into the version that we know and love today that is basically one of the greatest video games of all time. What do you think? Resident Evil 4, grand scheme. Isn't it in like that echelon of greatest video games of all time, wouldn't you say?
Wouldn't I say? I don't even think it's up to my opinion. It literally is considered one of the greatest games of all time.
Yeah, it's not a contriversial opinion to say that.
It's not.
Definitely
it's not. Even, I mean, literally, it has more awards. I think it literally is in the top 3 most coveted games of all time.
Yeah. So originally Resident Evil 4 was a totally different game, apparently. And it took place on an island, and it seemed like it kind of had like a late 90s, early 2000s Shutter Island type of horror vibe to it, where there was like a horror villain who had a hook for a hand, kind of like the Candyman, who was the main villain. And it was 100% different than RE4. And they showed it to the press. I don't know what the reaction from the press was, but apparently whatever it was bad because they scrapped all of it and they remade RE4. And the thing that was common between the two was the engine itself. So the revolutionary over-the-shoulder system, which is one of the reasons why the game's so great, they kept that. That was in RE 3.5. But they redid all the story, all the graphics assets, like the actual gameplay. They redid all of it.
This makes me think that had nothing to do with Shinji Mikami. And Shinji Mikami came in with the second chance. They were like, please revive this for us. I mean, I can't imagine, because Shinji Mikami is the reason why Resident Evil 4 is great. He's like a hero. He's a legend of the Resident Evil franchise.
Yeah. Well, I bring up RE 3.5 because Resident Evil 8 has been leaked. And apparently Resident Evil 8 is Resident Evil 3.5. They have taken this defunct version of RE4 and they've decided to make it RE8. What are your thoughts on this? Because I know that from talking to you off the air,
okay, now I know what you're talking about.
You consider RE7 very highly.
I love it.
You are a big fan of the horror simulator that is RE7.
Absolutely.
Now, if they're going with this RE 3.5 prototype for RE8, that means they're abandoning everything that made RE7 good. There's no way that RE7 was first person. It was completely different from RE4.
Yeah, that is interesting, because we've always wondered, at least you beat RE7, right?
I did not beat RE7. I got halfway through it and I lost my save file.
Oh my god.
I know. And here's the thing. I am going to beat it, but my plan is to buy it for PS4 to play on VR. And I am looking very forward to it.
It's a shame that you didn't just start raw with VR, because I'll tell you, spoiler alert, sorry kiddies, but the first 15-30 minutes of that is probably some of the most high octane nervous shit I've ever played in my life. When you get your hand cut off by that bitch up in the attic, dude, I freaked. Dude, I almost dropped the controller because it was just how intense it was. My heart was, when she just comes down and just the way the view is, I was just like, no. If that was VR, dude, that has to give some people some heart attacks. What the fuck?
Yeah. And that's why I feel like losing my save file, because I was playing on PC before. Like, if a game is on PC, I play it on PC as a typical rule. But in this case, I think this was a blessing in disguise because, like you said, that hand cut off scene probably is the most prominent. But there's some other scenes too where you're just like, oh, this might have been made for VR.
I have no doubt it was. With Resident Evil 7, you could see it from the moment you played it that it was designed for VR. And I think that ties in hand with their reasoning for first person, because that is unprecedented for Resident Evil. And if you really think about it, is a huge gamble for Capcom to take for such a beloved franchise. They've already kind of been hit and miss with the franchise lately with, 5, 6, and I think they may have done some other things, but I can't remember. To make that option to try a whole different approach, it's pretty spooky one. But nonetheless, the idea of complementing it with VR makes total sense if you can pull it off right, which they fucking did. I haven't even played the VR, and I know if I played that the first time, that would probably have been the most scary fucking game I've ever played in my life.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed the first half of RE7 that I played. I would have beaten it by now if I didn't lose my save file, but as soon as I lost it, because like I remember we were talking about how cool it probably was on VR, and then like a week later I lost my save file, and I was just sitting there, I was just like, you know what? I'm not starting this over on PC. I'm gonna do this on VR and figure this shit out for real. I want to know if I'm right, and this game on VR is fucking just revolutionary.
If there's one thing to pull from all this, is that you gotta give respect for companies. And I think this is what the real gaming community really lacks, is when a game like Resident Evil 7 comes out. When you come out with a game that pushes the envelope for a franchise, you gotta fucking say, do it more. I want to see more risks like this. Resident Evil 7 was a huge risk. I already said that, but it was a huge fucking risk. That could have deadpanned, and it could have fucking destroyed the Resident Evil franchise. Who knows what could have happened? Ended it. You know? But that was a smash hit because they were willing to go first person. They were willing to go VR. They were willing to give you a storyline that had, at what it seems, to have no connections with the actual main storyline at face value, which means they're taking a huge risk with fans, you know, like, oh, this isn't a real Resident Evil, you know. But nonetheless, Resident Evil 7 did something that I wish so many other game developers did with their select IPs, you know. Wouldn't it be cool if you saw, I'm not saying this would be cool, but just an example. You took Soul Calibur, right? Dead franchise. Where the fuck is it? Just do something with it. Just try something. Just putt around with it. Don't let it die just because that game, that level, that style of fighting isn't popular anymore. Same thing with Guilty Gear. You know, I love Guilty Gear. I love high-speed fighting games, but let's be honest, it's not a very popular fucking genre. Well, why not try to do something with that IP? Maybe an RPG. Fuck, I don't know. Like, just do something that would fucking excite people.
A Guilty Gear RPG would be so cool.
You know, maybe I'm just a radical in this mindset, but it's just like, I don't know why there isn't money for those type of ideas, because I really think they'll fly. I think they'll fly.
You know what I think's gonna fly, Broadcaster Nickels? That'd be the 9th remake of Spider-Man coming to a theater near you. And with that, are you ready for our preview segment?
Indeed.
What's that? You want more Crack Cellar? This is good. Join your lords on Twitter at The Crack Cellar and Facebook.com/The Crack Cellar.
Hey, you over there. Are you a straight-up Chad or a strong woman? Well, you can find us on Apple Podcasts and your favorite podcasting app. Or, if you're a straight-up beta cuck, find us on YouTube with the rest of the Cloud Chasers. And we're back with our preview of Christopher Nolan's Tenet. And Christopher Nolan's Tenet is a strong, strong movie. So strong that it has resisted the coronapocalypse. Broadcaster Nickels, they have declared that they will keep their July release date despite the stay home, stay healthy order of one Jay Inslee. Can you confirm whether or not this choice will have consequences?
Hold on a second. My third eye is opening right now. Okay. I gotta go take a shit. BRB. Fuck all that noise.
So you're not afraid? Are you going to go see Tenet in the theaters in July?
Yes. Because it looks absolutely fucking amazing.
What is your favorite Nolan movie? There's a lot of good ones.
That's hard, man, because Memento is really good. And the Dark Knight trilogy is really good. But, Dark Knight Beginning is, particularly very good. And also the sequel. What is that? Dark Knight Returns, I think. And then Dark Knight Rising is Rises is the third one, I thought.
That is the third one. So
Okay.
it goes Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, third one's probably the worst out of the trilogy. But all of it
was definitely the worst.
Yeah, but still had that dope ass fucking intro. The intro to Bane. The cinematography in the plane sequence for Bane is unreal. That's really fucking cool. But I don't know. I'd have to say I'm going for like just sheer spectacle. I'd say the Batman trilogy for sure. If I was going for actual story, I don't know, man. It'd probably be a toss up between Memento and Inception. What was the one with Matthew McConaughey? Interstellar?
That was Interstellar, yeah.
Was that Christopher Nolan? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought it was. That one, I don't know. I think I have to give that one another try because the first time I watched it, there was just there was a couple things that just stood out to me. It was just like, nah, that didn't seem very thought out.
Well, the thing that's funny to me is that The Martian is considered like the go-to sci-fi for like normies, basically. Like if you're just like our dad and you're trying to like say, this is what our dad would like in a sci-fi movie. Everyone goes Martian. And I thought The Martian was derivative garbage. It was one of the most boring movies I've ever seen in my life. And so many people told me for so long I had to watch The Martian. And I'm resentful over it because that movie is fucking garbage. And the reason I say this is because Interstellar is The Martian if it didn't suck.
I mean, have you ever seen a movie portrayed by Billy Bob Thornton called Astronaut Farmer or the Farmer's Astronaut? I forget what it's called.
Farmer?
Or Farmer's Astronaut. I don't know, something like that.
Oh, you like the astronaut's wife or some shit?
No. It was about the astronaut and the farmer.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
Based on a real story, Billy Bob Thornton is a crazy dude out in the middle of nowhere, wants to make a rocket ship to prove they can go out to outer space.
Alright, I'm sold.
Doesn't need no NASA. All right. Think about that real quick. All right. That is pretty much what Interstellar's about, but Interstellar gets a lot more heady. All right.
Well, all right. So I would boil down the plot of The Martian as man goes to space, goes to planet that's inhospitable, is faced with challenges that he has to figure out how to deal with on said planet. And by the way, this is all because of global warming. Blah 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 blah. Okay, that's the plot of both those movies. They both have the same plot overall. One has black holes and has style and has credence. One has fucking Matt Damon being a douchebag on Mars. So that's what I'll say for my.
Well, yeah, they're two completely different movies. I mean, one's about survival on a planet that's not hospitable, and then one's about intergalactic time scape. I don't even know what I'm saying. Interdimensional fucking time travel, plucking on the strings of reality type shit.
So then, what's your favorite Nolan movie?
I guess Memento.
I like Memento a lot too. I would say my favorite is Inception. I love The Dark Knight, but I don't think it's even in his top 5 of his best movies, even as good as The Dark Knight is.
Really?
Yeah. Have you ever seen The Prestige?
Oh, yeah.
Nolan just cranks out these movies, man. Like, all of his movies are great.
He's like the Daniel Day-Lewis of directors.
He is.
He comes out of nowhere. He's like, I'm going to make a fucking movie. He's like what Cliffy B wishes he was. You know? And he's like, I'm going to come in and make another $1 billion franchise. You ever seen that interview? Anyways.
Yeah,
look it up.
So, going back to the actual movie we're previewing, Tenet, it's going to be good because you've seen a track record, and that track record does not lie. And if you've seen the trailer, this just looks like pure Nolan goodness. And what I'm really seeing is that this is a movie about time and space, but mixed into like James Bond maybe a little bit with like the espionage theme. Where do you think this is going with the whole test and the afterlife? Because those are like the two most interesting things I feel like on this trailer. It starts that the beginning is a test. Apparently he passes the test, and then he is welcomed to the afterlife. And then you proceed to just see him in normal human world. So what is the afterlife? Is the afterlife another human world and that we're seeing him in it? Or have they just not shown us the afterlife in the trailer and it's a trickery of the cut? What do you think about those two themes?
I don't know. It could be just some really trippy. I mean, I have no idea what the movie's about at this point. I mean, it looks like it's just really about some secret, like, assassin shit, you know? Like, they're taking him into this underground world of espionage, essentially. And it's going to have, just from the trailers, kind of has, you know, some Inception type vibes, especially from the first trailer. I think it's the first trailer where he's scaling up the building. Just the angle of that immediately screamed Inception to me. Yeah. I don't know if he's going for some heady shit where you're going to figure out that, you know, what he thought he was doing at the end, he was asleep the whole time, like some Vanilla Sky shit. Who knows? But that's what it seems like to me, at least. That's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah. It's all really weird because the whole trailer...
Maybe even some Memento type stuff, you know, maybe he has some memory loss or like maybe some memory, some manipulation or something like that.
The thing that stands out to me the most in this trailer is that everything is happening backwards while going forwards. So you have like these scenes where the character is going forwards, but everything around them is going backwards. And it's not just one scene, it's the entire trailer. So to me, that means that this is going to be a permanent fixture. This is not just a small part of the movie, but like the overarching plot of this movie is we're going to be seeing things going different directions through time at the same time on the same screen, which is going to be a little jarring.
You're thinking superpowers?
I don't know, but is the afterlife the place where it's going in reverse? Is that what the afterlife is?
I don't know, just the way that scene was executed, it seemed like that was just a CIA agent saying, hey, we got rid of your identity.
So you think the afterlife is just code for your witness protection? You know, you have a new life. That's what you think it is?
I want to say witness protection. I mean, in the trailer, they clearly showed some elaborate way of him dying. I don't know if that had to do with who he was in the story or if, you know, he was someone of importance in reality, or if they just chose him for a program. I don't know what it was, but he clearly went through a fake death, and whether that's supernatural or just some good old fashioned CIA action, I couldn't tell you. But that's what it seemed like to me. It seemed just like good old fashioned CIA action. Christopher Nolan has a way with his cinematography to make things seem crazy, you know, but I couldn't tell you if he's doing some Inception type stuff where some radical ideas.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this movie, so far from the preview, the trailer looks like he's combining a lot of elements from a lot of his best movies. So one thing that I noticed is that the color scheme is very specific to Memento, but the special effects and the direction is very specific to Inception. And I just wonder what other wrinkles we're going to see in this movie. Is this like him trying to create his own version of like Stephen King's The Dark Tower? Is that what this is? Him trying to bring elements in from all of his other movies to create this like tentacle connection, this octopus that connects them all together? No?
No. I think that's like it's an ancient artifact. It's like the divine nail that fucking killed Christ. You know, like you don't want to touch that thing. It's just going to destroy your career. You never want to like make some afterthought attempt of connecting all these movies that you've done over the past years. I just think it's just a terrible idea. And what happened to Stephen King is, and he didn't even do it that way. He tried to do it the good way, and it still failed on the big screen. So,
and even had McConaughey.
The books are amazing. Dark Tower books are fucking killer. The comics are killer. I highly suggest, if you're not into books, go read and look at the Dark Tower comics. They are amazing. Anyways,
Stephen King's books are almost universally better than his movies, which is sad, but it's kind of common too.
Very sad.
Yeah. Most book-based movies suck, and most book-based television shows kick ass. I don't understand why. Maybe it's just a long-form format of television as opposed to movies, but it just always ends up happening like that.
Yeah, it's just the way it is, you know? It's just the way it is.
So how big do you think Robert Pattinson's role is in this movie? Because the trailer makes it seem like he's a secondary character. But when you really look at the basis of the movie and who his character is, it seems like he should be in it almost the entire movie. He's like the sidekick. Like, so if you were to compare this movie to Men in Black, he would be the fucking Will Smith of this movie.
Yeah, and I mean, but also Nolan, I wouldn't expect anything predictable from Nolan. I mean, he could be doing some crazy stuff. There might be a couple other characters that are involved. I imagine maybe it just plays off both those guys. Maybe the movie is constantly jumping from those two characters. Maybe they're tied together in some significant way, which ends up culminating in the end surprise. Who knows? I mean, but with their both the guy that was in the first trailer prominently, I didn't recognize him. I don't know who he is. I know who Robert Pattinson is. But I know he's not. Robert Pattinson isn't doing the greatest roles. Like, he's not super, super popular, but he's still a high budget actor. So I would imagine that the guy in the first trailer is not. If he is the main lead, I would say maybe he's a co-lead with Robert Pattinson. So who knows? I think it's interesting, though, that Robert Pattinson is in line to do the next Batman, and Christopher Nolan is the guy that is pretty much credited as doing the best Batman trilogy of all time. That's kind of cool.
I really like The Dark Knight, but I think Dark Knight Rises sucks, and I think Batman Begins is good, but I wouldn't take it over any of Burton's Batmans.
You thought Dark Knight Rises sucks?
Yeah, I didn't like Dark Knight Rises at all.
Oh, wow. Dang.
I just thought it was a pretty... And
it could have been better. Definitely could have been better.
Part of it was because The Dark Knight was so good that like it had a lot to live up to, and it was probably something like that, Living in the Shadow or whatnot. But I'll take it over Batman and Robin, but I'm not taking it over Batman or Batman Returns. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not taking it over Dark Knight. I'm not taking it over Batman Begins. The only one who gets killed to me by Dark Knight Rises is Arnold Schwarzenegger's
you're talking about George
portrayal of Mr. Freeze.
Prepare to freeze.
Which, to this day, I think is probably one of the worst comic book movies of all time. I'd have to really look deep, but I put Batman Robin right in the contention for that.
Yeah, I think Val Kilmer, made this idea with Tim Burton, and then they just took that, and they're like, oh, we can get even more wacky. Let's give George Clooney bat nipples.
Oh, God.
Anyways, we're getting off track.
So I see two different kind of outcomes based off this trailer. I see a movie that's either Memento meets Minority Report or Inception meets Men in Black. Of those two, what do you think is more likely?
I don't know which one's more likely, but I will say I want Inception meets Men in Black. That sounds cool.
There's a few scenes that make me lean towards Inception meets Men in Black, and one of them is really towards the end of the trailer, where they both walk into this room with bulletproof glass that has bullets broken through each side of the bulletproof glass, but it kind of like perpendicular angles, and they're kind of dressed in like Men in Black type suits, and the main character asks Robert Pattinson, what happened here? And then Robert Pattinson's like, it hasn't happened yet. And then it just shows some shit go down and it cuts away. Like that's one of the scenes that really makes me kind of go in the Men in Black direction. And the Inception direction is basically through the entire movie. This movie has an Inception undertone to it that immediately attracted me to it.
Yeah. But wouldn't it be cool if it was like more of a Memento meets Minority Report?
Well, that could be it too. It could
like
be.
How cool would that be? Because I think that would be even more interesting. I think that would be the coolest one of the ideas.
Yeah, and there is some credence to that too. Like the whole conversation in the beginning where he's like, let me tell you about time, and you've passed the test, and this is the afterlife. And then you have this sort of theme going on where he doesn't seem to have memories of what's happening until it happens. And it seems like they're going after some sort of criminal that's going to destroy the world or something. So, I mean, they say that they're trying to prevent World War III in this trailer. That's like their red herring for what this movie's about. Oh, we're just trying to stop World War III. And they ask, we're going to try and stop the nuclear holocaust. And they're like, no, it's worse than that. And then it shows the quote unquote main character, the guy, not Robert Pattinson, who I don't know his name. He's just like facing this light and it's like flashing at him. And he's kind of like in horror, like at what he's seeing or whatever. I don't know what exactly is happening here, but there is an angle where this could just be a reverse timeline starting from the end of the movie to the beginning, just like Memento, but with the fact that they're trying to stop a pre-crime from happening before it happens. Kind of,
yeah.
Even if you take the Minority Report aspect away, you could kind of also compare it to Legion, one of my favorite television shows currently on the air right now. It also has a very specific angle of, we know something's going to happen in the future. It hasn't happened yet, but we're going to do some really heinous shit to stop this thing from happening that actually hasn't happened.
Well, yeah, it's like the paradox where you conventionally think that doing anything, once you see an outcome, that doing anything post knowing that outcome is going to change that, but end up finding out that everything you did once you found out the outcome was what made that outcome to begin with, you know? So,
right.
It could be that type of situation for Minority Report, where it's like this agency and this guy in the trailers is like some almost like, Doomslayer, wink, wink, just fucking going through the crusade unstoppable, and they're trying to figure out how to stop him. And this might be what it is, like getting to him before he even knows what he's capable of, or, maybe recruiting him into this agency. That might be what that is. Congratulations, you're in the afterlife now. That could be what it all is about. Who knows? I mean, we're throwing balls way out in the outfit now, but
well, this trailer is just left open to so much scrutiny. And I kind of enjoyed the trailer because I talk a lot of shit about modern day trailers and how they give away too much shit. This trailer is the definition of a good trailer that doesn't do what I'm talking about when I say that. They only give you a significant amount of tidbits, but they don't lead anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's what Christopher Nolan's all about in the trailers, if I think back to it.
Yeah.
He's never really given away the idea of his movies at all, which I totally respect him for, because a lot of franchises give you fucking beginning, middle, and end all in the trailer.
Right.
It's kind of sad.
It's very sad. So the movie tagline is "Time runs out." So again, we have a strong Inception-based reference, and we also have a kind of a tell, in my opinion. When you say time runs out, what happens when time runs out? You lose. Typically, that means you lost.
Have you ever played Majora's Mask?
Right. So Majora's Mask is an exception to this rule.
It's the dawn of a new day.
99.999% of the time, time runs out means you lose. So if the tagline of the movie is you lose, I think that Christopher Nolan is either telling us what happens in this movie, aka this is a good guys lose, villain wins, bad guy ending, or it's a red herring and he wants us to think that so he can pull the rug from underneath us at the end in a weird way in which we think the bad guys are winning till the last possible second, and then somehow some weird crazy shit happens and the good guys actually win. What do you think about that? Do you think this is a red herring, or do you think he actually gave away the plot ending by saying this tagline? What do you think? Because he's making a very bold declaration when he does that. Time runs out.
Well, I mean, there's so much meaning to that statement. I don't even know what you could really interpret it from it, but I mean, when I made the joke about Majora's Mask, that's immediately what I thought about. And if I was thinking about time runs out, some heady fucking like storyline experiment, you know, with Christopher Nolan's involved, what could it be? Who knows, man? Maybe there's like they're stuck in this time loop. You know, they know everybody knows what's going to happen, and everyone keeps on trying to change it just a little bit more and more to prevent it from happening, but it ultimately happens, and then time runs out, and it's the dawn of a new day. 3 days left. Go for it, you know?
Interesting.
But, I mean, God knows what. We could be totally off.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's just interesting. You combine time runs out with the afterlife. It's like, what happens when time runs out? You go to the afterlife. So there is definitely a lot of clues in this trailer. That's one thing I will say, is that however you want to interpret these clues is up to you. But there's a lot of them in this trailer, and they're all esoteric, and they don't give away shit. And I love that, and I respect that of this.
That's how it should be done.
Yeah. So that being said, before we finish up our preview, I have one final question for you. Christopher Nolan movies always have a twist, with the exception of, I guess, the Batman movies. They're not really twisty. They're just, you know, they're good, but they're not, there's no real, like, super plot twist in any of them, really, at least by my definition. All of his other movies, however, all do have pretty significant plot twists. He's one of those type of guys that does that in his movies. What do you think the plot twist will be in Tenet?
The main guy that you're following is the villain. At the end, it's going to be like a perspective switch. You're going to be like, it's kind of like the villain versus the protagonist versus the antagonist type of thing, you know, where if you're in the other person's shoes, it always looks like you're the good guy. You know, he might be playing on that. I think that might be a theme of what's going on, you know, just based on what we're talking about. But I feel like, I don't know, the devil's lettuce and some of this liquor might be getting in my head. I don't know. I might be thinking about some crazy things right now.
That's a good one. But for me, I think that the plot twist is going to be that that the afterlife is not actually real, and that they're going to be in a training simulator. And that after all this shit ends, they're going to come out of a training simulator, but they're not going to actually be humans. They're going to be aliens. They were training to pretend to be humans, to go down and to invade Earth.
Did Alex Jones just fucking touch your forehead and Start giving you divine information or something.
There's just some weird stuff with the way that these two characters interface with each other. So like the way that it starts out, there's no proof that in the beginning, before the quote unquote test, that the guy's partner is actually Robert Pattinson. They show a guy that kind of looks like him, but at a side angle, and you can't tell if it's him or not, in one brief frame. But before the test is quote unquote over and the afterlife begins, you have no proof that Robert Pattinson is actually his friend. So the way I look at it is that this could be a case of alien abduction, where you take this guy and you bring him to this training simulator so that he can train one of your operatives while he thinks that that operative you're training is his partner. Teach you everything you need to know so that you can send him back down and that his partner would be none the wiser.
I mean, that's a lot to interpret.
It is, but the thing with Nolan is that he is so grounded with his movies. Even Interstellar was so grounded. Like, he doesn't do outlandish stuff. And I feel like he's due. I feel like there's a chance here that he's going to use this movie to do something fucking crazy and to totally blow people's minds. And I don't think anyone's going to come at this with the alien abduction angle. But there's some real questions as to why the beginning of the movie is shot in a way that's very alien, that doesn't really make sense, and for which you tell this guy, you pass the test, you're going to die now. Welcome to the afterlife. What better way is there to steal a human, abduct him, and put him in a training simulator as to tell him he's in the afterlife?
Oh, dude, I mean, it's already been played multiple times. It's the perfect scenario.
Right, and the whole backwards thing, where everything around him is going backwards, this could be a symptom of the way in which the aliens interpret reality. This could be a thing where the whole concept of time is flipped for a different species, where we see time that goes forward. How are we to know that there are alien species out there that see time backwards? We don't have a lock on reality. Our concept of reality is based off of our brains and the way our brains choose to interpret reality.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think of our brains as like an instrument, and our instruments are able to detect one of those things called time.
Time isn't real. That's the thing that's why time is so interesting. Some people don't realize time isn't real, but deep down they do. Even the people that don't know it, deep down, subconsciously, they know time isn't real. And that's why time paradoxes, time travel.
Wait a minute here.
All at the zeitgeist of what excites the human mind deep down.
I mean, I think Christopher Nolan needs to hire us. So I think that's what's going on right now. If he listens to this, he needs to be like, "Damn, those are some good ideas." All right.
And on that note, Broadcaster Nickels, do you give this a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a thumbs sideways?
Oh, I give it a 2 thumbs up. I wish I had 4 thumbs so I can give those titties 4 thumbs up.
Yeah. I'm sure that's no surprise, but I definitely give this a thumbs up. I'm very excited about this movie, and I didn't even know this movie existed till recently. This movie came out of nowhere for me, and I'm very glad it's happening, and I'm very glad it's not being delayed, and it's actually coming out in a few months, unlike every other movie that got sent to 2021.
Yeah, well, I mean, it just probably got lucky. Probably mostly done, you know?
Yeah.
It's a shame. Fucking coronavirus.
Are you ready to move on to our review?
Are you fucking kidding me?
And we're back with our review of id Software's Doom Eternal. And the creators of this video game describe it as the following. Hell's armies have invaded Earth. Become the Slayer in an epic single-player campaign to conquer demons across dimensions and stop the final destruction of humanity. The only thing they fear is you. Experience the ultimate combination of speed and power in Doom Eternal. The next leap in push-forward first-person combat. Discover the Slayer's origins and his enduring mission to raise hell with a Z. They spell raise with a Z. I want to make that clear. Broadcaster Nickels, can you believe how fucking awesome the Vulkan engine is compared to DirectX? Dude, I don't know about you, but I played this game at 1440p, max graphics settings.
Yep.
And
I did too.
I observed.
I have a 1060 and I did that.
Dude, I observed the frame rate the entire time. It never dipped below 60 one time in the entire campaign. I could not believe it. There has not been a modern game with those level of graphics that have been able to accomplish that in 10 years for me.
It's definitely a marvel of ingenuity for sure as far as game engines go. I can't believe. I wonder, is that proprietary or did they made that in house? Didn't they?
I don't know exactly what the Vulkan API is. I just know it's like DirectX, but better apparently, because it just, dude, so Final Fantasy 14, for example, it runs on DX11. On DX11, Final Fantasy 14, which has markedly worse graphics than Doom Eternal, it dips below fucking 60 FPS constantly, dude. Like, all the time. No, anytime any crazy boss abilities going off in FF14, it'll dip. Anytime. Any day of the week. We're playing Doom Eternal, the exact same settings with much better graphics, and there's 1,000 demons being rendered on my screen, all shooting individually modeled graphics for their weapon effects at the same time at me, while a giant super skyscraper demon is shooting a goddamn laser out of his forehead at me, and I'm at 60 FPS locked. What kind of black magic is going on in that Vulkan API? I wonder.
I do wonder indeed. Well, I'll tell you that description about push forward, that's very true. You gotta keep fucking moving. That is the secret. Anyone struggling out there with this game right now, don't stop. Whatever you do, just don't stop. Keep running. Make laps around the area they've given you. Just whatever you do, don't stand in one place. It's the biggest mistake.
Oh, it is. And honestly, I don't think you can beat Doom Eternal sitting in place unless you're playing on like that super easy mode, whatever it's called, like Don't Hurt Me Please or whatever that is. Any normal difficulty, even like just like Hurt Me Plenty or whatever, I almost guarantee you that you cannot stand in place and actually beat the game. This game requires that you move. And on the higher difficulties in which we played, dude, you have to, not only do you have to move, you have to be like dashing multiple directions like you're a goddamn shinobi to get out of some of these situations.
Some of them are just non-redeemable.
Holy shit.
There's a boss that we'll get to in the spoiler section, but he can get close to you. He's not a boss. He's a reoccurring enemy, if you will, and he can just fucking get so close to you and make this slash that you just can't seem to jump and dash out of. Yeah. He just fucking cuts you down. Kills me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that enemy slash mini boss, whatever you want to call it, is probably one of the biggest surprises for me in this game, based off of like our preview and everything we saw in the trailers and stuff. But we'll get to that in the spoiler section. I think that Doom Eternal is basically I'd saying Doom is now a platformer that also has some of the best gunplay you've ever seen in a video game, but we're a platformer. What do you think about the overall level and game design of Doom Eternal?
I'm kind of torn on this one, to be honest, because there was lots of parts of the game where I felt the platforming was super unnecessary and almost gimmicky at some points. Like some of the areas were just straight up so rudimentary. It's just like, why did you do this? Like, why do I need to hop on 2 floating platforms to get up to this pillar? Just, I feel like aesthetically, you could have done something different than just making these hovering platforms with these yellow bars. And at first, the yellow bars seemed kind of like almost necessary. Like wherever you see the yellow bars, they mean something is afoot. Like whether it's a secret or it's to traverse an area. But the yellow bar, they just use the yellow bars for everything up to combat. There's some areas where you just could fly around yellow bars, and that was part of beating that mob at the given area of the map, so there were certain things like that came off gimmicky to me. I'm just like, Doom. But then again, there were some areas where they were a nice touch. Like I really appreciated it. Like some of the platforming, I guess to go back to what you're saying, is some of the platforming in the game was just hit or miss for me, at least. Some of it was really good though. And I hope they evolve it, but I think they need to learn their lesson with, making it's just some of the. I'll straight up say some of the platforms you jump on are just clown shoes aesthetically. You're just like, what the fuck? Like, why is there a lava pit here and just two circular platforms with yellow bars? Like we're in this beautiful hellscape that has all this beautiful detail and stuff like that, and here it just looks jarring and yeah.
It's like the Mario Brothers approach. Honestly, like
it is.
Really think about it. Like Mario Brothers is like this beautiful like land that you're traveling through that has just like these weird platform things that don't belong there. You're like, what the fuck is that? Like this weird looking little copper rail that floats in the sky. You're like, that doesn't match with like the beautiful bobbed green trees and the rolling hills that I'm sitting here next to. I got the same sort of vibes with Doom Eternal, like what you're talking about. But between the double jump and the double dash and the falling floors, is this the most vertical shooter ever? I was really racking my brain thinking about if there was another first-person shooter I played that was more vertical than Doom Eternal, because there are some levels where I swear to God, you go up and down more than you go side to side, which is crazy.
I don't know. Some of the buildings in Warzone compete pretty heavily with the amount of stairs you have to fucking climb.
That's clown boat though. That's not real.
Yeah.
Like none of those rooms are real. Like for 90% of the stairs, it's just a hallway and there's no actual floor.
For sure. Yeah.
I don't really count that. One of the other great aspects of this game leads from that, and it's the puzzle design. I feel like the increased amount of vertical movement, forward movement, like you referenced the shotgun chain.
I wish they would have incorporated the super shotgun's hook chain into puzzles. How cool would it have been?
That would have been cool.
The challenges. You know how there's like a super challenge where you have to get the key and you unlock the gate, and that gives you one of the keys to unlock the super weapon in your fortress. Mm-hmm. But then there's the mini ones that don't take you to an instance; they just spawn enemies, and you actually use your ammo. Those ones, like I would have really liked to see something like where it spawned a bunch of the one-eyed floating eyeball creatures.
Caco demons,
yeah. Like, what if it spawned like 20 Caco demons, all perfectly spaced out, that move super slowly, and you got a shotgun buff or something, and you had a chain from all of them to get to this platform in time. That'd be cool.
Honestly, that is a great idea, and I think we've said this a few times in this podcast, but Ide should hire us. Ide Software, our resumes are on record. No, I agree. The puzzles were great, but I would have liked it if they did incorporate the shotgun's hook shot. But I think the problem is that the shotgun's hook shot was added last second.
I think it was an afterthought for sure.
It feels like they just barely tacked it on at the last second.
That's why it feels so OP.
Yeah.
That's why it just murders the levels. Mm-hmm. When you look at it and you're like, this level wasn't designed for me just to be able to fucking hook chain this motherfucker.
Yeah. And it's funny too, because as soon as I got the double-barreled shotgun, I immediately used it as my go-to weapon the entire rest of the game until it was out of ammo. That's all I did was use it, because doesn't that feel the most Doom you can possibly get playing a Doom game? Just going around only with your double-barreled shotgun?
Oh, sure. Dude, anytime I saw a mob of super enemies, Super Shotgun was the first thing I led with.
Hell yeah.
I mean, you can, if you are an aggressive player, there ain't nothing better than the Super Shotgun.
Definitely not. But the level design in general is just so 90s. It's so like golden age era PC first person shooter style. It reminds you of all the great first person shooters you played in the 90s. In every way, it's almost like they let the level design team be done by like some dudes that actually worked back then or something, because it's so true to form. It's not a facsimile. It's real. When you play it, you're like, nah, dude, this isn't someone pretending to make a level from the 90s. This is a guy that has that in his head. It's there. You can't fake this. There's no let up. The entire game from mission 1 to mission 13 or whatever the last mission was, I forget. It's the same all the way through. It's just 100% genuine old school PC shooter level design through and through.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the theme, you know, rip and tear. I thought that was corny at the beginning, you know. It's just like, man, they really overuse that. But it really is just what you do. Like, it's so true to form with that game. It's just like, that is exactly what they've been saying. That is exactly what you're doing. And you really just, you're into it, whether you think it's corny or not. Just like, but this game, you know, I know this is a review, and I guess we'll get to our spoiler section, which is more of the actual review segment of the review. But playing this game and, you know, and seeing what they were doing story element wise, it made me think more about Doom 1 and 2 and ultimately Doom 3, because I mean, I like Doom 3. It was unique. It's like Zelda. It's like playing Zelda 2. You know, you're just like, totally. Well, you're just what like, well, that's, you know, whatever. You're like, it's good. It's like, fuck off. You know, I'm playing it. You know, and anyways, I love how they ultimately connected. I think it was just 1 and 2 they connected. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think they discredited 3. But anyways, I hope they're going to maybe consider doing a lighthearted remake of 1 and 2 together. You know, bring it up, like kind of like how Resident Evil's doing, you know? Because now that we got 2016 and Doom Eternal and how they actually play in line with 1 and 2, which were so far in the past, which like a lot of people that are just new gamers and are just appreciating these new Dooms don't really like those old school games. They don't have the patience for it and shit. It's just not their cup of tea. It'd be cool to see that.
Can you even buy Doom 1 and Doom 2 right now? Like standard? Can you just go on Steam and buy those games?
Yeah, for sure.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think it actually, you get Doom 1 and 2 for free when you buy 2016 or Doom 3. I'm not quite sure. Yeah. Huh. But Doom, its software has a history of pretty much anytime a Doom game comes out, they pretty much give 1 and 2 away. Like they gave Doom 64 away. Like I have Doom 64 just because I bought Doom Eternal.
Moving on. So we talked in the intro segment about the music. The music in this game is god tier. This is like the best creme de la creme Western video game music you can get. It's like Static X, but much more metal and like demon metal. Really, you can call the music in this game demon metal. It's a new subgenre of metal, and it's so fucking good.
Well, it also has like electronic arts to it as well. Like they're at the beginning, you know, of BFG Division, you know. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of electronic vibes to that. That's what makes that song super cool. Is hearing all those like light switches and just hearing the fucking bass drop.
Yeah, there's not a bad song on the soundtrack, and there's one specific song for my favorite level of the game that is so good, and it's it's funny. This is so ironic. It's the least metal of all the songs on the soundtrack, and it's my favorite. And I'm a fucking metalhead. Explain that one.
It's just a great OST, to be honest.
It's
Mick Gordon does knock it out of the park. It's lucky. Bethesda, more importantly, it deserves artists on that level. Bethesda doesn't deserve id nor Mick Gordon. So
that's right. But sound effects were also really good. I loved everything was really refined and it just matched the tone of the game. But there's one that I really liked is the one when you get a new rune power. That little sound effect when you get a new rune power, when you buy a new rune power.
Oh, I mean, is it just pleasing to you?
It is, man. And I feel like sound effects in video games is sort of a lost art at this point. Like, they don't care. Like, it's all standard. It's like you're playing a shooter, you have a bullet, shoot, boom, sound effect, whatever. It's all standard shit. Doom Eternal has this element of, like, I remember the first time I played Final Fantasy 1 on the NES. This game had sound effects in it that were just like, whoa, what the fuck was that? Like, as like a 7-year-old or however old I was when I played FF1, there's just these weird sound effects that just like challenged your brain to understand what you just heard. Doom Eternal is one of the first games I've played in a while that have had sound effects like that, where I'm just like, what? What the fuck was that?
Well, that's also kind of the benefit of having a storyline that's based in fiction. You can have these weapons that no one's able to deny how they sound.
True that. But that's neither here nor there. What I'm really trying to say is that Doom Eternal really masters demon effects, demon sound effects. I felt demonic the entire time I played this game. What say you, Broadcaster Nickels?
Oh, dude. I was the chosen one. By the con maker herself. I felt imbued for a holy righteous crusade I would inflict upon mankind. I mean, demon. All, they never did. They ever tell us the world? They just said the demon world or the dark realm. They always said that. I'm not fucking sure. Oh, that is true. Yeah, they did at the end. Anyways, we're getting spoilers, I guess. But yeah. I remember now. I remember. Big brain 200 IQ here remembers.
So I thought it had just about the right amount of RPG elements that I wanted from this type of game. It went a little deeper than Doom 2016, but not much. Just a little bit. They took baby steps. If you're going to go the what about Bob route. They took baby
For
steps.
Sure. Can't have too much story because it's such a change.
Yeah, but one big change, I thought, at least in the mode I played in. So this is a weird thing. Doom Eternal has a lot of difficulty modes. There's like 14 different difficulty modes if you include every single variety. And
I picked the hardest one that was in the reasonable range.
Yes, you're like the hardest of the easiest.
Yeah.
And it's hard to say exactly because my experience could be totally different from these other difficulties I played, but what I noticed is that ammo management was emphasized. I did not have any problems with ammo in Doom 2016. I never ran out of ammo, ever, in any situation. And I played on Nightmare difficulty all the way through Doom 2016.
Now, were you using your chainsaw effectively now?
Yes, I was. In Doom Eternal, I started on Nightmare. I went Nightmare for the first 3 missions. And then I went down to Ultraviolence for the final 10 or whatever comes after that. Because there's such a busy gaming season right now. So many games came out at the same time. And I just wanted to make sure that I could beat Doom Eternal in a acceptable amount of time. So I dumped down to Ultraviolence. And the first thing I'll tell you about Ultraviolence is it's really not that big of a difficulty decrease. I was expecting it to just get really easy and I was just going to start pushing through shit like it was nothing. No, what ended up happening is that instead of wiping like 5 or 6 times, I'm wiping 2 or 3. You're still wiping. You're not like one-shotting every encounter like you'd think, but it definitely takes a dump down. Now, in Nightmare and Ultraviolence, the one thing I noticed is that if you use your ammo in the wrong situations, you were fucked. And you just had to like wait for gas to respawn. Which is fine.
Well, wait a minute. Your first tank of gas respawns. It recharges. So you always have one tank of gas, and it always seemed like to me in all the mobs, there's always like the weakest of the weak enemies just lingering around, and you can always just chainsaw them and always get some more ammo. As long as you were going to survive and make it to that enemy. I never really had a problem with ammo. Now, I did run into times when I ran out of ammo straight up, and I was like, fuck, I need to find someone to chainsaw real quick. That happened a lot to me. But I wouldn't say there was any time where I was like, where's all the ammo at?
Well, okay, so you're right that one gas fuel will respawn by default, right?
Yeah,
After
you can't saw super enemies or even mid-caliber.
So this is kind of what I mean, and this was much more prevalent in the first 3 missions on Nightmare than it was on Ultraviolence. But what I noticed is that you would get in these encounters where if you didn't use your ammo right, you would run out and then like some super shit would spawn in your face and you'd have no ammo for it. And then at this point, you only have one gas fuel. One gas fuel only works on fodder demons. Now, fodder demons do respawn periodically through every single encounter, but sometimes only one will be spawned and it'll be on the complete other side of the map, and you have a whole shitload of carnage coming at you. Now, maybe on the lower difficulties, this isn't as big of a problem. And on Ultraviolence, it was still kind of a problem, but not as much as it was on Nightmare. On Nightmare, it would be crazy. Like, I could not reconcile. I would have, like, the Super Caco Demon. I would have fucking a bunch of those, like, big fat boys with the big arms, with the big green laser beams and shit. And I would have no ammo. And I'd
the mancubuses?
Yeah, mancubuses. And I'd just be dashing around the map trying to look for a fodder demon. And eventually I might find one. But usually what would happen is that these guys would kill me before I got to it.
Yeah.
And it led to a lot of wipes.
Well, and that's the thing, with Doom, is that you will... That game does a great job with destroying your morale. Dude, some of those mobs, dude, they just pound waves and waves and waves and waves of super enemies at you. See, that's the one thing I don't know how it changes between Ultraviolence and in everything, like all the different modes, is the amount of enemies that come out in certain mobs, because there were certain modes, dude, or certain mobs where I would get, I swear there was like at least 6 different waves of super enemies, where it's just like fucking insane. And if you die, you go all the way back. You have to fight the whole mob over again. It's just fucking super insane.
Yeah, and I definitely noticed, and we've talked about this a little bit, Nightmare felt a little bit more nightmare-y in Doom Eternal, and we're not sure if it's because we're aging out of being pro gamers or if it's because they actually increase the difficulty across the board.
Yeah, from 2016 to Doom Eternal, Nightmare is a different mode. I think they also have more modes in this one.
Oh, they do, way more.
So Nightmare might just be a higher difficulty by nature in Doom Eternal.
Dude, if you do the hardest version of the extra life mode, that is like basically the hardest video game you can play in 2020. There's no way there's anything harder.
Oh, no fucking way.
Oh, it's crazy. Like,
not far as FPSs go.
They got you covered. Like, if you like this game, but you're like, man, I need something harder, they got your ass covered. They got the hardest shit that exists in just a standard single player experience. Period. They do. They got it covered.
That makes me think that's on like the level of difficulty of playing like Dark Souls or Bloodborne with no hits.
But worse.
It's like a no hit playthrough,
But it's worse because imagine if you're playing Bloodborne or Dark Souls and you got all the way to like let's just say Vicar Amelia, like the third or fourth boss, you lose, but instead of going to the beginning of Vicar Amelia's level, you go back to level 1.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That is
Like,
what
game
Doom
over.
that's
You wake
what
up
Doom
in that
Eternal-
fucking ward again. You're just like, shit, I got to
Dude.
rename this character. The other one died.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Like, the hardest difficulty available in Doom Eternal is so much harder than the standard person would ever consider possible. Even like the most glutton for punishment out there. And I give them major applause for that, because even if it's fringy and very few people ever will use it, it is so cool to have a video game that of the quality of Doom Eternal, that you know that if you like it this much, you can take it to the fucking heavens.
And this involves us moving to the spoiler section. Where the fuck is Alex Jones? We missed a huge opportunity here. A huge fucking opportunity.
Corrupt the child.
I mean, wouldn't it have been cool if you're just on Earth, you're passing through a destroyed facility, you see a radio, it's playing, these people are demons, I'm telling you, gentlemen. No one's listening to me.
Yeah.
Real missed opportunity.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Alex Jones does not get a cameo in Doom Eternal, and that is a goddamn shame, because one of the greatest things that came out of Doom 2016 was the Corrupt the Child Alex Jones mashup, which I feel like defined Doom 2016 success. I feel like it's actually deserving of a cameo in Doom Eternal, but there's nothing. And Broadcaster Nickels, how can this be forgiven?
By being Doom Eternal.
You're right. It gets all the forgiveness it could ever want, even though it snubbed Alex Jones.
You know what really just made me feel, I can't remember if 2016 did it. Maybe they did it and I'm just forgetting it now, but the radiation suits. When I saw the white suit just standing like out, like how they make the suits just float, it felt so old school to me. It was the most nostalgic thing out of the whole game to me, to be honest, was seeing the white suit just floating there.
Yeah.
I remember that from my childhood. I remember just hating the fucking acid pits. I was just like, fuck. I don't even want to go in those tunnels. Fuck the secrets. I give a fucking, I just want to finish the level.
Yeah. And it all goes back to id Software's, they're just unabashedly lovers of the 90s. What their style of the 90s. Like, this is not the team that's like, the best Doom was Doom 3. No, this is not that team. Like, there's no Doom 3 in this. This is all Doom 1 and Doom 2 with a modern shell around it.
For sure.
And it's amazing to me how they just brought everything you could ever want, plus more, in every single way possible. There's nothing more I wanted from this game.
Well, I'm going to challenge you on that. There's one thing that was glaringly missing from this game, which I was really hoping, and who knows, maybe there's some Easter egg hunters out there that are going to find it eventually, but Wolfenstein 3D and Doom 1 and 2, at least, had a very cartoony way of making walls just secret doors. You hump these walls, you keep hitting the button, and one just opens up, and it's like, and you're just like, yeah, what the fuck's in here? I was really hoping for something like that. I was really hoping to see like a sign from it or something like, how do you get in there?
Yeah.
There's just no visible entry, and you just have to start humping walls. I even tried it a couple of times. I was like, there has to be a secret wall in here.
Yeah.
But alas, there's not.
Yeah, you're right. There isn't any. And I do think that would be cool, but
it'd be super cool. They almost had everything. They literally had the same icons from original Doom 1 and 2, like infinite, or not infinite health, but full health restore, like the God face, just doing the O face. They had the punching juggernaut power up. They had everything. Everything looked OG. The health potions, OG. I just expected it. I was just like, they have to. At this point, they have everything.
Yeah. I'm kind of conflicted on that one because I do miss that. But that was actually like that whole feature of humping doors to open them. That was a
product of its time.
it was 100%. It was a product of the engines that were made back then.
Yeah.
So the way that they did graphics back then lended to doing stuff like that. But like current day engines are not made for that type of shit. And
that's true. That's very true.
I kind of understand. I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, I feel like they did so much else so right that I'm just kind of dismissing that as like it would have been cool if it happened, but I don't think it was necessary.
Listen, Daniel, don't you tell me what's necessary.
But speaking of missed Alex Jones cameos, the Corrupt the Child, there's one thing I noticed throughout this game. In that, in certain high intensity parts, and this game is just littered with different encounters, but there's certain encounters where like they push you, they push the intensity and they push you, and you can feel your heart rate beat up as you're doing these encounters. One thing I noticed is that in some of these encounters, if you listened very closely with headphones on, you could hear a baby crying.
Yeah, you can hear people just moaning in general.
But there was specifically a baby crying that I would hear. Someone. Is that baby the child that was corrupted in the Alex Jones 2016 Doom video? Broadcaster Nickels, I demand answers.
No doubt. No doubt.
Confirmed. Okay, so other
his
than
name? Owen Benderman.
Yo, dude, that's our neighbor. Don't talk shit.
Rest in pepperoni, Owen. I haven't seen you in a long time.
You can show up at your doorstep tomorrow, Broadcaster Nickels. You know this.
This is true. He is a CIA plant operative.
So I think that it's interesting. The beginning of this game, the storyline is very specific. Like there's a whole lot of like direct cut scenes, and you feel like this game is going to be story ridden early on. But then like you get to the middle point and the story just like kind of like
it disappears,
spreads out real far. And it's funny because we were talking like when we were both like 3 missions in, we're both like, oh shit, man, they might be going too hard on the story, blah, blah, blah. Right after that, like literally right after we talk, it's like, oh, there's no more story till the end.
Well, they really just set up the priests, killing one of the priests, and then as soon as you do that one, it's like the other 2 priests and getting up to pretty much finding out what's really going on at the end is about 7, maybe like 5 or 6 missions long. And then all of a sudden they like, maybe around mission, what is it? Mission 8, mission 9, where you actually all of a sudden just get a flood of information. Like they give you 9 different codex entries that give you the explanation of Argenta or Argentinur and what's the sacred city, Tabas Nabah, I think it's called. Like all that just gets thrown at you, and you find out the whole process of the Sentinels and the Order and the Maker and all that. All that gets thrown at you in like 4 missions.
Yeah, like the pacing. If there's one flaw to this game, it's the pacing of the storyline. Like it goes from super hardcore to nothing for like most of the game, then right back to super hardcore till the end. And then at the very end, the last 2, it's like there's nothing again. It's very weird. Like the pacing is odd. But it's kind of a small gripe because you don't want a lot of story. Doom is about just killing demons.
I don't agree. I don't agree, man. Like after some of the intros of these introduction of these characters, I really want to see more of the story flight. Like Samuel Hayden is super cool. I like how the relationship between the Doom, the first guy in 2016, and then the Doomslayer and Vega and Samuel Hayden, that's a really cool relationship. I liked how that played out. That was pretty cool. And on top of that, Samuel Hayden is still a mystery.
He is. It's funny. I was expecting some answers on him, and you never get them.
Oh, you get some answers. I mean, to get at the end there, they you find out he's a maker, he's a marker or whatever or maker. Yeah, he's the father.
What?
Yeah. Did
Where
you read all
get this from?
Well, in the entries, they talk about the father and how he like left them and stuff like that. And one day the makers weren't able to do their transfiguration process anymore and stuff like that. And it left them in need. And at one point, you find out that like when the Slayer goes through that door at Urdak, the door says "Welcome, Seraphim," which means the Doomslayer is the betrayer of the makers, right? And you in that scene where you clearly see that hooded figure taking the Doomslayer to the chamber that ejects him with argent power that gives him infinite power. That was Samuel Hayden. You could tell by the voice and the fucking robotic hands. There was no hiding it. And so he was in Urdak, right? But in the game, he tells you that no man or demon has ever stepped foot in Urdak. He was kind of implying that he's never been there himself, but he had been. And then on top of that, the father went mysteriously missing, right? He made the Doomslayer and then bounced, right? And I'm missing one point. I think it's the second mission or the last mission where they straight up imply that Samuel Hayden is the father. There's something said.
I miss all of this. This is so weird. I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, so essentially the way the story goes is that long ago, before any of this, there was the makers, and they pretty much answered to this voice that wasn't actually a physical being. It was just a voice, and they called it the Father. It was like their God figure or whatever. And they were able to pretty much go through this rebirth process called transfiguration that made them into those like metal angel machines that you call it, right? And they were able to like spread this across the known universe. That's why Urdak is like translate. This is all like read in the codexes and stuff like that. Urdak can be translated from numerous human languages that pretty much means paradise, which kind of implies that the reach of the makers, the con makers, have been for eons and since the beginning of time. It feels like from our perspective, if you will.
Wow.
But anyways, that voice left him one day. And there was a prophecy foretold that essentially that the Doomslayer would come and there would be nothing and it would destroy the maker's way of life or whatever. And that's what played out essentially. But the whole point of the game Eternal is that you're figuring out all the characters involved and who, like why it's actually happening, right? Because you find out that Argent Energy is essentially this power source, this essence that is made from all the victims slain by demons itself. It's like this weird synergy effect. Dude, going to Nostroval or Necroval, that was so dope, dude. It's like that was some fucking in Dante's Inferno level shit, dude.
Yeah, that Necroval was a pretty cool level. Actually, Necroval Part 2 seemed exceedingly harder than the rest of the game, which I found interesting.
Damn right, dude. You're in the city of the damned.
There's like one encounter in Necroval Part 2 where I could not believe how hard it was compared to the rest of the game. And I was on Ultraviolence at that point. I wasn't even on Nightmare anymore. And it was just like, I think I wiped on this one encounter like 16 times. It was crazy.
Oh, dude. That's child's play. I think I wiped on some of these counters like 20 plus times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Fucking Nightmare mode's fucking crazy. But one thing I liked about the Doom Eternal being basically a gaming time travel machine to take you back to the better, less PC times of video game history is the UAC spokesperson, who is this permanent NPC hologram that appears to you throughout the game as long as you're on Earth. So there are several levels that are not on Earth. And those ones you don't see UAC spokesperson, but on all the Earth levels you do. And it just starts out really innocuous. Like in the very beginning, it's just like, the Earth is a melting pot for the universe. Please do not offend the mortally challenged.
Yeah.
Submit to them. And it just keeps getting darker and darker. And towards the end of the game, it just gets to the point where instead of saying this rhetoric, she's just like, the Doom guy is an asshole. He is trying to kill us all. Why have you not killed him yet? Like, it gets so crazy.
That was my favorite.
The evolution of the UAC spokesperson is fucking awesome in this game.
He goes from propaganda to the Doomslayer sucks. But
I hear he has a small penis.
Yeah, small PP confirmed for sure.
Oh,
no, it was a good play, dude. Like, I loved how they took the diversity culture, SJW culture, and they were just cranked it to 11. And 11 was, well, do you accept demon culture? And what if they invade? Are you cool with that? That's part of their culture, if they just take over life as you know it in the earth. That's cool, right? I mean, you're accepting of that, correct?
But on the other side of the coin, this game sort of deifies the Doom guy in a weird way that hasn't really been done before. So, like, in the past, the Doom guy was like this badass super soldier that just fucking destroyed demons, and you kind of think of him as like Rambo. You know what I mean? Like, not that he's a god or not that he's like a superhero. He's just this guy that is really good at killing. But in this game, they actually ascend him to this weird semi-deification where you have this Dr. Elena Richardson that you start finding her codex for, where she starts talking about the Doom guy. And she's like basically like the time traveler's wife. She wants her some Doom cock. And the way she talks about him is like the way someone would describe Jesus, like one of the apostles would describe Jesus. And it's very interesting that they decide to deify the Doom guy in this Doom Eternal game that has a lot of references to godhood, like the way the makers work and this whole plot line. There's a lot of deification from all sides.
Well, did you read the codexes?
Some of them.
Oh man, you missed out on so much story. So that the Doomslayer in this game is not the same one as past Dooms. He's the original Doomslayer of 1 and 2. He is that guy, and they actually
that is the Doom. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
You just said he's not the original Doom guy, but then you said it's the Doom guy from Doom 1 and 2. That it's the
well, so Doom 3 and 2016, I'm pretty sure, are two different characters.
Well, Doom 3 isn't even real. It's not like a part of the real Doom storyline. You can kind of think of it as Mystic Quest, Final Fantasy Mystic Quest.
Yeah. And it's not the same guy from 2016, right? I got the impression it was a different Sentinel. It was like a different...
I was unclear if it's the guy from 2016. It could go either way. I don't think they were very specific about that.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, the way they tie it all together is that when the humans opened up Hell's Gate on Mars and it infected the realm, essentially like at the end of Doom 2, he went through a hell's port after he went to hell and with like the deepest parts of hell he could or whatever, and he went through a portal. He ended up escaping to Argent D'Nur, the planet that Argent D'Nur is on, and the Sentinels found him. And the Sentinels were like this, like kind of gladiator race where they were just like they had the lowest rungs go into the Colosseum and they'd all fight for honor and they would get put in the front line of their army and prove their worth and stuff like that. And the highest of the highest would become the Sentinels. And he was called the Outsider. So this all takes place after Doom 2, essentially. And he slowly becomes like fucking way better than all of them. Everyone realizes his fucking strength and stuff like that. And they're like, this is crazy, blah, 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 and he becomes the Doom. They anoint him the Doomslayer. And then after that, all this stuff with Samuel Aiden starts happening at Urdak, and they infuse him with the Argent energy, which makes him like an actual like legend. And that's what like fulfills the prophecy and all that stuff that Samuel Hayden is talking about, which is still kind of hazy at this point. They don't like, they kind of implied Samuel Hayden was the father. They said the prophecy is fulfilled. They don't really tell you how Samuel Hayden knows this whole prophecy. And if the prophecy is fulfilled, and he knew what the prophecy was, then why did he really betray the makers and Urdak? And like, there's all this stuff that's not really fulfilled, but they did give you a lot. And the most important thing is they tied Doom 1 and 2 to 2016 and at least 1 and 2 to Doom Eternal. I'm not quite sure.
Oh, for sure. It is
if the same guy in 2016 is the guy in Eternal. That's not clear yet, but
yeah,
we'll just assume he is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Dr. Samuel Hayden is such a great character, and I loved him so much in Doom 2016.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of the game, to be honest.
But I think he's even better in Doom Eternal. And this is because, so if you think of Doom Eternal like Destiny, R-rated Destiny, think of it like that. Your ghost is Vega. He runs shit for you. He's talking in your head. He's giving you like all these little like ancillary like tidbits and commands. And Vega himself is way cooler than the ghosts in Destiny 2. Like, I would take Vega 99.999999% of the time over any, even Dinklebot, which I like Dinklebot, but like you go to like the current ghost of Destiny 2, who's like a joke compared to Dinklebot, like they're not even in the same universe compared to Vega. And Vega goes down at a certain point halfway into the game. And this is right when you regain Samuel Hayden, and Samuel Hayden like takes over for Vega as like the narrator of the game.
Yeah.
This point of the game is when this game becomes legendary. This
is
when the game becomes what it is. You're going through these levels, and you have Hayden just like retelling like these legends as you go through these levels. Like, I forget which level it is, but it was Necroval. It was Necroval. You start going through Necroval, and he starts narrating the soul extraction process. And he just like starts saying some shit like, the soul is extracted from the husk of the human body. And it's just like all shit like that.
Oh, dude. Like, when he was explaining the unholy union, he's like, here an unholy union was formed where the souls were exchanged for essence.
It's so good, dude. You just have like all these like epic lines where it's like, those who are accepted will go to the ether, but those who are not will fall discarded into the blood swamps. Like, just like weird random.
That's what I'm talking about. Some Dante Inferno shit.
It's so good, dude. And it goes all the way from like the middle of the game where he replaces Vega all the way to the very end of the game, to the point where he's narrating as you're approaching the icon of sin. But it's weird how in the beginning of his narration, it's so specific. Like, he's giving you like these tales and like this really epic information. And then once you get towards the end, he like goes into like defense mode. Like, once the icon of sin becomes a part of the game, like all of a sudden he just becomes very like matter of fact and like, listen, dude, The icon of sin is bad news. You better kill him quick.
It's going to be interesting how the next game does play out, because they've now confirmed essentially that there's a hell realm, a heaven realm, and the universe as we know it smack dab in the middle. But with the con maker dying, I don't know if heaven just was destroyed and starts collapsing or something like that, which like throws off the balance. But they also confirmed that there's a Satan. They said the Dark Lord. Did you notice that? They're like a contract was made with the Dark Lord himself. So I was like, oh shit. So like there is a Satan, which means like, how dope would it be if Samuel Hayden and the Dark Lord face off in a sequel in Doom Eternal? That'd be dope as fuck.
That is the brightest timeline.
Because he's like the father of Urdak, right? He's supposed to be the Holy Father, essentially, trying to preserve mankind. And then there's like Satan himself, who was pretty much betrayed by the corrupted heavenly angels that made a contract to have a profitable soul exchange. You fucked up my business.
Yeah.
I think that's what the mysterious voice was. You remember that? The mysterious voice going, no.
Oh yeah, that was a weird one.
I'm pretty sure that was Satan. Or it was
I thought
Satan.
it was Vega.
No, it was Satan, or it was the betrayer. Because remember that heart that you saw that he stabbed, which was the knife from the betrayer, that heart, I think, was the betrayer's son's heart, which was the host of the icon of sin. So I think that was rather the betrayer's voice, hearing his son finally die, or it was Satan super pissed, knowing what was going down, but he couldn't do anything. Because the Dark Lord screams, you're going to hear it in all realms.
That's true. Samuel Hayden was awesome, but even like before he took over as the narrator, Vega was really good. I loved Vega. I loved the voice actor. I loved the writing for Vega. Like when you get to the point where he's like, you can't just shoot a hole into the surface of Mars, and then you like take the controls and you do it in front of his fucking face. This game had a lot of moments like that where you're just like,
the whole game was like that.
This is a video game.
Every single mission was, there's no way into the facility, but boom. All right, we're in. There's no way into this isn't a different realm. There's no feasible approach. It's just like, but there is a gate in the center of Mars, but there's no way to boom, blow up Mars.
Yeah.
Everything was vile, very destructive.
It was, and there was no filler really in this game. That's one thing I really enjoyed about the campaign is I didn't like go through missions where I was like, that was a filler mission. That was bullshit. Every single mission had something big going on in it.
Most definitely.
And one of the weirdest things about this game, based off of the preview, is the axe-wielding boss from the trailer that you assume after watching the trailer is like the final boss, or like at least like the magus of the game compared to like Chrono Trigger. Like maybe not the final boss, but like the first final boss. This dude ain't even a boss. He's just a super heavy, but super heavy demon.
I think that was kind of one of the like gotcha moments from the trailer.
For sure.
Because they made the Marauder seem like this rival. I thought the Marauder was the betrayer.
So did I.
But then you actually see the betrayer. And you're like, oh, well, who the fuck's the Marauder going to be then? And then you find out the Marauder is just the Sentinels that is just a sect of the Sentinels that betrayed the true righteous ones and sided with the con maker. That's who the Marauders are. They're just corrupted Sentinels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big red herring, and I got to give IAD credit for that trailer.
Yeah, for sure. I thought, honestly, from the trailer, I really thought the whole game was going to be like this build-up showdown with the Marauder. I really thought that's what it was going to be. Exactly. And then halfway through the game, you start slowly learning about the icon of sin. You're like, oh, what the fuck's that? And then you're just like, oh, that's going to be the fucking final boss. Okay. Which was super dope. But at the same, like, aesthetically super dope, mechanically kind of a letdown.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But that's not a fault of Eternal. That's just very rarely does final bosses live up to the moment. You know, it's hard to like make a fight live up to the end of a game that's really good.
It is, definitely. And the Icon of Sin was definitely a classic Doom final boss fight. The Icon of Sin is so similar to the last boss of Doom 2, like the way it's structured. It's total homage. And I finished the Icon of Sin fight. Literally, there were so many demons on the screen that you couldn't see the platforms anymore. It was just demons in every direction, at every angle, at every level, as I delivered the final rocket to the Icon of Sin. And that is Doom. That is Doom. And I was very glad that it ended that way.
I just whipped out my fucking minigun turret. My turret mode and minigun is my favorite weapon. I just fucking unrailed people.
Yeah. The minigun was good. I liked all the weapons. Like, they did such a great job with the various weapons. There was not a single one that I didn't use.
The sword was super cool too. The Crucible, that was dope.
It was. And I liked how the last level, they give you infinite sword ammo. That was a great touch because
fuck yeah.
That's what I wanted to do with the sword, is what they let you do in the last levels. Just basically use it with reckless abandon.
That's what's up. Just throw impossible waves at me and let me use the sword infinitely. See what I can do.
Yeah. But what was your favorite level in Doom Eternal?
Honestly, I think it was, after I got towards after I played the whole game, Necroval, I think was my favorite. Just because not only did it
part 2,
both. They just had interesting parts,
two different levels, though. You gotta choose one. I mean, one level within the game, like the confines of the game. So that Necroval split to 2 levels. Which one?
I'd say part 2, probably.
Interesting. That was the hardest. I think that was the hardest mission in the game. Necroval part 2.
It was just so dope. Going up to the fucking fortress and stuff like that. That was super cool. And in going in the box and going through that's part 2 or part 1, I guess. But the whole thing was super dope. I love Necroval.
Well, my favorite level was Urdak. I liked a lot of levels in this game. It's not like there's only a few I liked and there's a bunch of... I loved every single level of this game. But Urdak was special. Urdak, first of all, complete departure from what a typical Doom level is. It's sci-fi, it's futuristic. It looks like the heavens from Diablo or something.
They had fancy climbing plates.
It felt like something out of Destiny. Like it was not a typical Doom level. It had the best music in the game, and like I alluded to this earlier, my favorite track from the entire OST of Doom Eternal is the Urdak level music because it is haunting. There's just something about the music in Urdak that gripped me. Also, Urdak, in my opinion, had the best platforming in the game. The entire game, the best platforming.
That's because it aesthetically made sense.
It did. It was like going into, like, you're used to playing in a bunch of Zerg levels and Star. So I'm going to take this to StarCraft. Imagine you're playing like 10 levels of Zerg, just like Zerg Hive, and then all of a sudden you get to a Protoss level. That's what it felt like, crawling out of the Zerg and coming up to like a Protoss Arbiter ship. Going to Urdak. It was so cool, the change of pace, and they used it to its advantage. It was the only level in the game that did not have metal music. True. Every other level in the game had a metal theme song to it.
That was definitely on purpose, for sure.
It was. Yeah. And it just set this weird tone combined with the platforming and just like the fact that it was so out of place and such a change of pace. And then it ends with the boss fight with the con maker, which I think, for my money, is the coolest boss fight in the game. What do you think? What's your favorite boss fight in this game?
It was the coolest boss fight in the game, for sure.
And again, reminds you of something out of Destiny, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Surprisingly enough. You know, before I lose the thought, when you're talking about Zerg, didn't you think the what was it called? The Kali boss, the thing that decided which souls were good and bad in Necrovol, didn't that look like a Cerebrit?
Yes, it did. That's exactly what I was
As soon as I saw that, I was like, dude, that's a Cerebrit. The Zerg Cerebrit.
Yeah. No, there were some serious Zerg vibes in the direction they took this game in, and I'm happy about it. I love everything
the
they
hell
did,
creep,
with the small exception of the final boss fight. I feel like the final boss fight was like, hey guys, the final boss is the con maker. Cool. All right, let's do this. And then like 5 days before release, guys, the CEO just said we need a boss after the con maker. Okay, just make some giant demon that you like shoot a bunch. Cool. All right. It's past QA. We're good for gold.
I honestly think it was there just to set up. I think they had to have the Icon of Sin die because I think it's important to the storyline evolving in the next Doom. Because I think the idea of the Betrayer's son hosting the imprisonment for the Icon of Sin, if I'm interpreting it right, I'm pretty sure that's what was going on. I think there's more to that we're going to find out. I think that's going to be the kind of gotcha moment that Samuel Hayden gets on us.
Yeah. Well, I think that if there's one thing that we've come away from Doom Eternal with, is that if there's another Doom game made, the main plot point is Samuel Hayden.
For sure. I think it's going to be honestly, I think it's going to be like a God versus Satan type thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think this has all been a ploy for Hayden to get back at Satan fucking him over a long time ago.
You may be right about that. But after playing Urdak, the only thing I could think of was, wow, Doom Eternal just outdid Destiny at being Destiny. How cool would a Doom Eternal MMO FPS be?
Oh, dude, that would be so dope. If they could really flesh that out, that'd be dope.
Dude, all I could think about is like, well, this is what Destiny tries to do, but can't.
Yeah.
That's what I thought when I was playing Urdak the entire time.
No doubt, dude. And they could totally, they have the possibilities for expansion, like all the weapon archetypes, all the base weapons. They can just turn those into archetypes for loot, for weapons and stuff like that. You don't even have to. You can just, the loot mechanic could be attachments. That'd be the cool thing. Is that, well, yeah. I mean, it'd be interesting what they come up with, but nonetheless, there's a lot of possibilities there.
Is Doom Eternal the best Doom game of all time?
Yes, I would say it is.
I would too. And I fucking love the original two Dooms. And I love Doom 2016, but Doom Eternal just, from every standpoint, from music, from sound effects, from level design, from gameplay, from story, it's just the perfect package.
For sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I think Samuel Hayden is really going to end up being like a legendary FPS storyline. I think when we get the sequel to Doom Eternal, the 2016 Eternal and the next one are going to be a dope ass trilogy to be remembered.
Well, it's going to be a dope ass trilogy without the music that made the first two games great. So
we'll see how that goes.
That. Yeah, let's hope that he changes his mind about that, because
I believe in id, and if id really wants to make a good game, they gotta. I don't know how they're going to make up for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, any closing thoughts before we give our official Joker ratings?
I am the con maker.
Broadcaster Nickels, what is your official Joker rating for Doom Eternal?
I give it 2 Joaquin Phoenixes, but I wish I had 4 Joaquin Phoenixes to give it.
I too give it a Joaquin Phoenix. This is probably the greatest first-person shooter video game of all time. And I don't say that lightly, because I've probably played 200 first-person shooters in my life. There's a lot of fringe PC shooters I played in the 90s, PC that no one else knows exists. Like, we've talked about Blood Plus and Hexen. I will tell you right now that Doom Eternal is 100% the greatest modern first-person shooter. There's no question or doubt. If it is in the top period of all time, I would say yes, it is. But at least that's open to debate.
I don't know, dude. I thought Call of Duty Ghost was really good.
Don't you mean StarCraft Ghost?
Shh. That dies with the GameCube.
Time paradox. And with that, we will close out.
Hallelujah.
Warning, the Slayer has the BFG. I repeat, the Slayer has the BFG.